object and return add employee. So this is the page actually, add employee.html, one page that we need. So let me design the page, or let's say I would like to copy it from the other file, other page, other applications. That page that we are going to create here in the templates folder. Now when user clicks on the submit button, that file I'm just going to paste it here, and of course I'm going to explain that. Just it's a form design which contains employee number, name, salary and department text boxes. User has to fill the data and the user has to click the submit. That is what only the thing. Okay, user has to fill the data and has to submit. Correct? We will complete that. Next, when user clicks on the button, this HTML that we will discuss. Two more HTML files we need. One is add employee.html. Next one is if employee added successfully, then we want to show the employee in a success page. So there is two more files that we will create next, HTML files. But now assume that there is a form and the user has filled all the fields like employee number, like employee name, salary, department, all the details are filled, and user is now going to click on submit. Now when user clicks submit, the data of this form will be set to this object by Spring. That is what employee object. And the request is sent through HTTP post method. This request is a post request. From this page, the browser makes a request called post request to the some URL. Let's say the URL of this MVC is /save. Okay, and the Spring will set the data in this object. Spring will set the data into this object. Employee number, name, salary, department, everything. Now call the REST API. To save this employee to the database at server. Post method can be used to send the data to the server and store the data at the server. Okay. So to call the REST API, we are going to use REST template. And we are going to call exchange method of REST template. Exchange method. Yesterday that we have discussed it. Okay. So this is what the next method has to do. This next method is a handler method for this save in this MVC application. This MVC application is a consumer or a client. It is going to make a call to the REST API. And while calling the REST API, it is going to send this employee in the request body, and the API will receive this employee in the request body and it will save the employee in database. Overall, that is what happened. This is the client making a call to REST API, sending the employee in a request body. The API will receive the employee in request body and will save this employee in database. So I think now, basically that you got the clarity on what actually we are trying to do. Correct. HTML files I will copy them, and that HTML page is just going to contain a form. Let's write the remaining the post API. Okay. See, I'm just going to create another method. public, return type is string. After sending this employee in a request body, and once the employee got successfully inserted in the database. So otherwise I will take the method name as like save employee. Okay. Now let's see the parameters. Okay, let's see the parameters. First one, at model attribute. Of employee. Employee. Come model. You know what at model attribute will do? This is annotation, tells a string. Set the data when the form is submitted. Set the data to the employee object. That object is in model with the name employee, and then pass that object as a parameter for this method. This annotation tells a string. What tells string? Set the form data to a model attribute, and the name of that attribute is employee. So who is that? It is a form object stored in model with the name employee, attribute name employee, and then pass it or provide it as a parameter for this method. That's what this annotation tells us. String. Okay. What this method has to do now after receiving the employee? It has to call the API. So let's say the endpoint URL. Which endpoint URL it has to call? That we are going to see here. String equal to /API/save. This is the endpoint URL that it has to call. Who has to call? REST URL. Now, but to call point URL we need what? REST. So create a REST template object. Which method of REST template object are going to call this endpoint URL? Exchange method. Exchange method. What this endpoint returns? API/save returns employee. Employee who has it is not a generic type. It is not returning a response of generic type. If it returns a response in JSON format of a Java generic object, while converting into JSON, generic types are erased. But here no generic type, just single employee that who has inserted in the database. So there is no need to use parameter as a type reference object. This object is not needed. We know of creating this type of object. Okay, so this is to tell the converter that the JSON data should be captured into a generic type called list of employees. But here the response is not a generic type, just a single employee. It is not a list of employees. So it is just a single employee. So there is no need to use parameter type reference. But one thing. Exchange method parameters are what? First one is URL. Second one is HTTP method. This time HTTP method is post. And this method is mapped to each method inside the controller, we need to map it to some application URL by using one URL and one HTTP request type. So that is possible by using this annotation, post mapping. Let's say /save. Okay. If you take exchange method has 4 parameters. First parameter is the URL, the string, endpoint URL. Second parameter is HTTP method, that is get or post. Third parameter is a HTTP entity, and this is nothing but request entity. If it is a get request, it is null, but for post request, we should send the request in request body. So whatever the entity that you want to send in the request body, that must be specified as request entity. If you want to send any headers, if you want to send any request body, the headers and request body must be set in the HTTP entity object. You have to create an HTTP entity object with the body of the request and also headers of the request. If you want to send any headers to the server, then we should pass it like a third parameter, that is HTTP entity. Fourth one is a response type. Response type of response. It is employee right now. It is not a list, it's employee. 4 parameters, but third parameter is new. We should construct HTTP entity object. While constructing HTTP entity object, it can hold the request body, which is an employee, and also request headers. If any header that you want to send to the server along with, if you want to send any headers with this request, in this request. But how can I set the headers? Then you should construct one more object called HTTP headers. There is one class, HTTP headers, to hold all the request headers. There is a class given by Spring, HTTP headers class. In this instance, you can place all the headers first, what headers that you want to send in this request. Then you create HTTP entity object to hold the request body. In the request body, I should send an employee. Of course, it is converted to JSON data format or XML data format based on the header value. So to hold this request body and the headers, we need another object called HTTP entity. So with code, we are going to get more clarity, and already we got the clarity. See, HTTP headers. You see, I have created one object, HTTP, and import this from Spring Framework. Okay, HTTP headers is equal to new HTTP headers. Now headers.add. Header name, accept header. Value application/JSON. Header name is accept, header value is application JSON, which means you want to set the header as application/JSON and header name is accept. That is called headers.add. Next, content type also application JSON. Content type tells the server about what is a MIME type of content in the request body. Accept header tells the server what type of response that the client can process. That's called accept. I told already accept and content type while we are working with Postman. So basically first header tells the server about the MIME type of a response that it can process. Content type tells the server about the MIME type of the data in the request body. So in the request body, JSON data is sent, and expecting in the response body also JSON so that the client can process. Telling the server that I can accept and process the data of JSON format. The MIME type of the data should be JSON. Now you create HTTP entity object to hold this employee, that is body of the request is employee, and to hold the headers into single object. Then you can call HTTP entity. This Java object employee will be serialized into JSON data format. That is done by converter. Now you can call exchange method with 4 parameters. REST template dot exchange. First parameter endpoint URL. Second parameter HTTP method post. Third parameter HTTP entity object, which contains the request body and request headers in a single object. Then response type is employee. Okay, exchange method returns response entity. Its return type is response entity class, and body type of the response is employee. The type of the response body is employee. So response entity RE is equal to you can see this is the endpoint in our CRUD application /API/save, which returns a response entity of employee. Right. Now, for example, if already employee exists, then returns response entity with the status bad request. If you successfully saved, the employee got saved in the database, then returns that saved employee with status created. Created means 201. 201 means created. 200 means okay. It belongs to 2XX category of response status codes. Now, I got the response entity into this client. Now check whether the status code belongs to 2XX category or other category. If RE dot get status code that is 2XX successful, there is a method, predefined method, get status code of response entity dot is 2XX successful, yes, then do one thing, model dot add attribute of employee RE dot get body. That is saved employee, whatever is returned in the response body, that we want to add in a model with attribute name employee. Then return success. That's the view name. Else. Some conflict occurred, which means employee already exists. It's a bad request. Correct? Then model dot add attribute of message. The message is attribute values. Employee already exists. Let's say conflict. Employee already exists. return failure. So this is the code. What is the next step? We need 3 HTML templates. One is add employee, that should have a form. Next, other template file success.html. The other one failure.html. Okay, failure has to show this message. Success has to show this employee, the employee who has saved to the database successfully by calling the backend API. And add employee is a form. Now our focus will be on 3 templates. First template is add_employee.html. This is the view name, logical view name. Now we need a template for this view name. So that a template should be under templates folder. It's not there. I'm going to get it from other application. So instead of retyping the total HTML template, just let's copy that file and we will make the necessary changes whatever is needed. This is add_employee.html, but of course, we are not going to implement any validations. Again, that will make some more coding. Just you are defining some form and you know already how to bind the form object. How can I bind this form and with a form object? By using the time-diff attribute th::object. This is an attribute which helps me to bind this form with the form object. And this is the variable expression as you know in time-diff. So at runtime, the actual value of this variable expression gets replaced. Who is the actual value of this variable? That is employee object, the form object. So this form is binded to the employee object at runtime. And the request will be sent to method post. And how can you bind the fields? How can you bind the fields with, this is the field expression. Okay, so how can you bind the field? How can you bind this input field with a form attribute or form variable? That is by using star. Then finally you are going to click on the submit button. We don't have any validations and nothing, just add employee. Click on submit. This is add employee. Next 2 more HTML templates are needed. One is a success and the other one is failure. If it is success, the logical view name is, if it is success in MVC, then the HTML template that constructs a view page is success.html. That is a HTML file, the file that can prepare the view, success.html. For failure, it is failure. In success page, what I have to do, just only show that employee, whoever is added, just print a message that employee is added to the database successfully and show the details, employee details. You can show like a table, or you can just show like simple, like employee number, name and all, by using some span tags. Okay, so what I do, I'll just show like a table format. Okay, so which means again I need this type of, but here I don't have a list, it is just a single employee. So I'm not going to use a loop. I will tell you the change whatever that I'm going to do. But this code is needed for me, but not a loop, because it's a single employee. It's not a list of employees. So create a new HTML file under templates. The file name is success.html. The title is a success page. What should I do here? Just print a message in H2. Employee is saved in database. Employee saved to the database. Employee saved to a database. And break. And display the details. The employee details. Now show them like a table, but it is not because it is just only one employee. Employee dot employee number. Employee dot employee name. Employee dot sal. Next one is employee dot department. Okay, employee dot employee number, employee dot e-name, employee dot sal, employee dot department. Next one is a failure page, that is called failure.html. It's a failure page. See, th colon text dollar of message. That's it. Okay. This is the paragraph text. Simply display the message in failure page. Whatever the message, conflict, employee already exists, whatever the message is written, that message should come if in case it's failed. So we are done, and it is our complete example to show you how to call the REST API from client application with REST template. So this example is a base example, and for the next example also that we are going to same as it is code, but instead of using REST template that we are going to use web client. So that's why this example will help us for next example as well.
రగడం కాదు రగమోగుడం లేవు అద్దం ముందర నాతోనే యుద్ధం చేసినట్టే గాజుల చేతులు చాపి దగ్గరకొచ్చిన నువ్వు చెంపల్లో చిటికేసి